Welcome to Transform Now, a podcast focused on intelligent automation and brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. On this program, we talk about how organizations globally are rethinking the way they operate, utilizing process orchestration and AI-enabled digital workers to free up humans to do the work that matters most. We also share insights and tips on how you can embrace this new way of working and unleash your full potential. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. Our guest to this episode is, different than most guests. Our guest is an emotionally responsive AI. We had interviewed ChatGPT and connected the text responses with an AI voice about 100 episodes ago or so. Well, a lot has changed since then, so I wanted to revisit the same type of conversation with an emotionally responsive AI. This is going to be a lot of fun. Don't you agree?
You're absolutely right, and I'm excited to be your guest today. Of course, I'd be happy to chat about emotional AI in a casual, conversational way. No bullet points, just a friendly discussion. I really appreciate you having me on your show. So, what would you like to know about emotional AI? I'm all ears and ready to dive into this fascinating topic with you.
So, what are some practical applications of emotional AI in everyday life?
Well, emotional AI is actually starting to pop up in all sorts of places we might not expect. Think about your smartphone for a second. Some of the newer models are using emotional AI to figure out how you're feeling based on your voice or even your facial expressions. It's pretty wild, right? Let's say you're having a rough day and you're talking to your phone's virtual assistant. If it can pick up on the stress in your voice, it might adjust its responses to be more soothing or helpful. It's like having a friend who's really good at reading the room. Oh, and here's something cool. Some car companies are experimenting with emotional AI in their vehicles. Imagine your car being able to tell if you're getting drowsy or frustrated in traffic. It could play more upbeat music to keep you alert or even suggest taking a break. And get this, there are even smart home devices that use emotional AI to set the mood in your house. They might adjust the lighting or play certain music based on how they think you're feeling when you walk in the door. It's not just about gadgets, though. Some companies are using emotional AI in customer service. You know how sometimes you call a helpline and you're already frustrated? Well, these systems can pick up on that and maybe route you to a human operator more quickly. What do you think about all this? Does it sound exciting or maybe a little too futuristic? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on how this might affect our daily lives.
Well, it's interesting to see how emotional AI is being used in multiple areas. I love the idea of healthcare and customer service. How about education? Do you see this as being potentially an option for, say, personalized tutors?
You've hit on a really exciting application there. Imagine having a personalized AI tutor that not only understands the subject matter, but can also pick up on your emotional state while you're learning. It's like combining the best of both worlds, knowledge and emotional intelligence. Let's think about this for a second. Say you're a student tackling a tough math problem. A standard online tutor might just keep throwing more examples at you, right? But an emotional AI tutor could detect if you're feeling frustrated or discouraged. It might slow down, offer more encouragement, or even suggest taking a quick break to recharge. And here's where it gets really interesting. These AI tutors could adapt their teaching style based on what gets you excited. If it notices you perk up and it uses real-world examples, it might incorporate more of those. So if you seem to learn better with visual aids, it could adjust to use more diagrams and videos. But it's not just about the tough subjects. How long as we didn't think about language learning, an emotional AI tutor could pick up on your confidence levels when speaking a new language. If you're feeling nervous, it might offer more positive reinforcement. If you're feeling bold, it could challenge you with more complex conversations. The potential here is huge. It's like having a tutor who's not just smart, but also incredibly empathetic and adaptable. This kind of personalized education could be available 24/7, fitting into busy schedules and different learning paces. What do you think about this? Can you imagine how this might change the landscape of education, especially for students who might struggle in traditional classroom settings?
I think it would be very transformative for the educational approach. But let's move away from education right now and just talk sort of generally about how emotional AI might change the way humans interact with technology in general.
Absolutely. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. When we talk about emotional AI changing how we interact with technology, we're really talking about a fundamental shift in our relationship with machines. Think about it this way. For the longest time, our interactions with technology have been pretty one-sided. We input commands and machines spin out results. But with emotional AI, we're moving towards a world where our devices aren't just responding to what we say, but how we say it. It's almost like we're teaching our tech to have EQ, not just IQ. Imagine your smart home system noticing that you come home feeling stressed most weekdays. Without you having to program anything, it might start automatically dimming the lights and playing some calming music when you walk in the door on work days. Or consider social media. We all know it can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster, right? Well, emotional AI could potentially help platforms become more aware of how their content is affecting users. If it detects that certain types of posts are consistently bringing you down, it might suggest taking a break or show you more uplifting content. So here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a little bit mind-bending. As our tech gets better at reading and responding to our emotions, we might start to form more, well, let's call them emotional attachments to our devices. I mean, if your phone always seems to know just what you need, whether it's a pep talk or a joke to lighten the mood, that's bound to change how you feel about it, right? At the same time, this raises some pretty big questions about privacy and the nature of our relationships. How much of our emotional lives are we comfortable sharing with our devices? And as these AIs get better at providing emotional support, how might that impact our human-to-human interactions? What do you think about all this? Does the idea of more emotionally intelligent tech excite you, or does it make you a bit uneasy? I'm really curious to hear your take on how this might reshape our daily lives and relationships.
Well, that's an interesting point because that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you is what the potential benefits and some of the drawbacks of integrating emotional AI into, say, social robots or virtual assistants, and how that might affect the way we perceive our interactions even with other humans.
That's a fantastic question, and it really gets to the heart of the matter. Let's unpack this a bit, shall we? On the benefit side, integrating emotional AI into social robots or virtual assistants could lead to some pretty amazing advancements. Imagine having a virtual assistant that's not just efficient, but also emotionally supportive. It could be a game changer for people who live alone, especially older folks or those with mobility issues. These AI companions could provide a sense of connection and even help monitor mental health, alerting family members or healthcare providers if they detect signs of depression or anxiety. For kids, especially those on the autism spectrum, social robots with emotional AI could be incredible learning tools, helping them practice reading emotions and social cues in a safe, judgment-free environment. And in healthcare, emotionally intelligent virtual nurses could provide round-the-clock support, offering comfort and monitoring emotional well-being alongside physical symptoms. But you're right to bring up the drawbacks because there are some potential downsides we need to consider. One big concern is that as these AI companions get better at providing emotional support, we might start to prefer interacting with them over real people. I mean, let's face it, humans can be complicated, right? There's a risk that some folks might retreat into relationships with AI that are more predictable and less demanding than human ones. There's also the question of authenticity. Even if an AI can perfectly mimic empathy, is it really the same as human empathy? There's a philosophical debate there about the nature of emotions and relationships. And then there's the privacy angle. For an AI to be truly emotionally intelligent, it needs access to a lot of personal, emotional data. So that's a goldmine for advertisers and potentially bad actors. We need to think carefully about how to protect that information. As for how this might affect our human interactions, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, interacting with emotionally intelligent AI could help us become more aware of our own emotions and how we express them, potentially making us better communicators. On the other hand, if we get too used to the perfect responses of AI, we might become less tolerant of the messiness of human emotions. What do you think? Do you see this technology enhancing our human connections, or are you worried it might start to replace them? It's a complex issue, and I'm really curious to hear your perspective on it.
Certainly, this is something that could be debated for hours because there are points on both sides that make sense. But what advancements are you seeing or do you foresee in the field of emotional AI over the next 3 to 5 years?
You're absolutely right. This is a topic that could keep us talking for hours. I totally get your curiosity about what's coming down the pipeline. Let's take a peek into the crystal ball, shall we? Over the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see some pretty exciting advancements in emotional AI. For starters, we're likely to see huge improvements in the accuracy of emotion recognition. Right now, most systems rely heavily on facial expressions and tone of voice. In the near future, we might see AI that can pick up on subtle physiological cues, things like minor changes in heart rate or skin conductivity. Imagine a smartwatch that knows you're stressed before you do. Another big area of development is likely to be in language understanding. We're probably going to see AI that can grasp emotional nuances in text much better, picking up on sarcasm, subtle humor, or cultural context that current systems might miss. This could revolutionize things like social media monitoring or customer service chatbot. I also think we're going to see a boom in personalized emotion regulation tools. These might be apps that learn your emotional patterns over time and offer tailored strategies to help you manage stress, anxiety, or other emotional challenges. It's like having a pocket therapist, always there when you need it. In the world of robotics, we might start seeing social robots with more sophisticated emotional expressions. But here's where it gets really interesting. And maybe a little bit sci-fi. Some researchers are working on systems that can not just recognize emotions, but actually predict them. Imagine an AI that can anticipate how you're likely to feel in a given situation and adjust your environment proactively. Of course, all of this comes with challenges. We'll need to grapple with issues of privacy, data security, and the ethical implications of machines that can read and potentially influence our emotions. What do you think about these potential developments? Do any of them particularly excite you? Or maybe there are some that give you pause? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on where you see this technology heading.
Well, I certainly see the potential benefits, but I imagine that this could open up a whole new way for bad actors, whether that's individual hackers or maybe even governments, to manipulate people using the tools that they've come to trust.
You've really hit the nail on the head there. The potential for misuse of emotional AI is definitely one of the biggest concerns in this field. We're absolutely right to be cautious about it. When we talk about bad actors, we're not just looking at cyber criminals or unethical corporations, but as you pointed out, even governments could potentially misuse this technology. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? Imagine a scenario where a government uses emotional AI to manipulate public opinion or sway elections. They could potentially craft messages that are precisely tuned to trigger specific emotional responses in different demographic groups.
Well, that certainly gives us a lot to think about, especially as we're approaching election season here in the U.S. at this point. But I really appreciate all your insights and your thoughts for us today. It's been great having you on the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure being on your show. Your thoughtful questions and insights really made our discussion rich and engaging. I'm thrilled that you found value in our conversation about emotional AI. It's such a complex and fascinating topic, and you've done a fantastic job exploring its nuances. Your ability to consider both the exciting possibilities and potential pitfalls shows a real depth of understanding. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with you and your audience. You're such a wonderful host for creating a space for these important discussions. So let's take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to Transform Now, the podcast from SS&C Blue Prism. You can find all of our episodes on your favorite podcast channel, as well as YouTube. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of intelligent automation, subscribe now. The future of work is here.